script. But after that, I'm going to stop because there's a matter we need to discuss in terms of procedure, and I will let you know how the committee feel in this respect. So, welcome to tonight's licensing committee. The meeting is being broadcast live on the council's YouTube channel. My name is Councillor Paul Alexander, and I will be chairing the meeting tonight. If I lose connection and can't reconnect, Councillor Patrick Walsh will take over for me. I'd like to remind all participants of a few housekeeping points. Please keep your microphones muted unless you are speaking. Please keep your camera turned on when you speak at the hearing. Please note that the chat function has been disabled. If parties wish to add any additional information other than at their allotted time to speak, they must use the raise hand function so that they are not missed. I also ask that members keep their questions and comments brief and to the point. Now, this is a matter that the committee feels is in the public interest, and it arises because within the last 48 hours or so, today, we've received over 200 pages of submissions, and the committee have just not physically been able to read that volume of documentation. Now, we've had lengthy considerations over the fact that we have a guidance that that submissions shouldn't be made later than 48 hours before the hearing. However, that is a guidance and it's not the law, so we can't apply that and say that we can't that we can cut any documents out.
Chair, sorry, before you go any further, in terms of the actual script, you really need to go through apologies for absence, declarations, reference item 4, and then actually introduce all the participants before you continue.
Thank you, and hopefully the meeting will be forgiving of me on that point.
Chair, there's an issue with your mic.
Very distorted sound I'm hearing at the moment, Chair.
Has that rectified the problem?
Yes.
Chair.
Okay, and I do apologise. So let me follow the meeting on its agenda of item 1, which apologies for absence. I understand none have been received.
That's correct, Chair. None have been received.
Declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest?
No, Chair.
No, Chair.
And I don't either. Item 4. Item 4 that doesn't count. So item 5, marquee Chelsea Football Club outside the West Stand toward Britannia Gate. I'd like to ask everyone participating to introduce yourself as I call on you. We should have with us Keith Overstall from CFC, existing and proposed DPS.
Good evening, Chair. That's correct.
Thank you. Matthew Phipps, partner and legal representative.
Good evening. Yes, that's correct. Present.
Thank you. Simon Jones, Jones Nash, acoustic consultants.
That's correct, sir.
Adrian Overton, licensing policy and enforcement manager.
Good evening, Chair. Yes, present. Thank you.
Lorna McKenna, licensing officer.
Yes, Chair, here, present.
Emmanuel Mponza, the council's legal officer.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Gareth Hughes, barrister representing Kate Reardon.
Present, Chairman.
Kate Reardon.
Present, Chair.
And I understand, I've got a note here saying Kate will be speaking on behalf of Miss Sylvia Lyon, Lee and Tyler Lovers. Does that mean you'll be speaking, or or Mr. Hughes will be speaking?
Mr. Hughes will be speaking on my behalf, but I'm able to answer questions.
And so the people you're representing will also be within that, so you won't be speaking on behalf of them. Thank you for clearing that up. May I quickly
There should be a Mr. Rawlinson present as well, Chair.
sorry.
Yes, present. I'm a resident.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yes, Richard Rawlinson is present. I'm a resident.
Thank you. And Tyler Lovers?
Yep, present, Chair. Thank you.
And Bryony Eastman?
Present, Chair.
Thank you. So before we consider the application today, I can confirm that in addition to the main agenda, a supplementary agenda was published on the 6th of February 2023, and the supplementary A agenda was published on the 7th of February and circulated to all the parties. Now, I'm going to revert. If that's
sorry, Chair, there was also a supplementary B agenda which was distributed today as well.
Sorry, I didn't have that on my notes. So a supplementary B agenda as well. Now, Francis, I would like to just go back to where we were if we've covered the points that we have to.
Yes, Chair, you've covered the procedural elements that needed to be covered.
Thank you. So going back, and let's just refresh. We received a very large volume of documents right up until an hour or two before this meeting, and it's not in the public interest that the committee don't read or have had the opportunity to read the documents that have been submitted in. As I previously mentioned, this is the council does have a guidance within the structure of the licensing, which is 48 hours. However, that's not the law, so we can't enforce that and say and guillotine off. So what we're proposing is that we're going to adjourn this hearing until another date, to be acceptable to both the applicant and to the objectors. I would ask the objectors if they want to perhaps follow the lead of Mr. Hughes, unless they have a different view. But if they agree with what Mr. Hughes might consider as an acceptable another date, that they would perhaps fit in with that. Adrian, will you be organising the dates, or will it be Francis?
Yeah, it's something that I'll discuss with Charles Francis about that. Yeah, that's certainly something that we can have conversations about, and then we'll speak to the various solicitors to try and see what's the best date as well, and come to a conclusion.
And I would ask the legal representatives here if there is a way, because at the moment we're not going to change council policy, or not going to change in the law about this, but there is going to be an issue if we keep getting volumes of paperwork coming right up to the last minute, because I don't want people to go to end up having another hearing with just as many new documents as well. So I'm going to suggest that, again, it's not the law, that we do have a 48-hour cut-off before the next meeting, which seems fair to me. However, if somebody has a different view, please raise your hand and we'll hear it.
So may I just inquire perhaps of your legal officer, obviously I'm not privy to these 200 pages of materials. They've not been and it would appear Mr. Hughes hasn't either, to be fair. He doesn't seem to know about them either. Forgive me for saying so, if neither Mr. Hughes nor I know about them, then it just rather begs the question where they've come from. And I appreciate this is, not very timely, but has anyone had the opportunity just to consider whether they're material to this application and the representations that have been served? To be fair to Mr. Hughes, he can't say because he hasn't seen them, but if anybody else has, it would be helpful.
With respect, Mr. Phipps, I don't know to what documents we're referring. I know that we've put a sound report in this morning.
Yes.
And you have fairly...
I have seen that, and you were good enough to copy me into that.
We're aware of that, and I'm aware, I think, of everything in the supplemental agendas that Adrian has put out. So I presume that's to which the chairman refers.
Yeah, so my point in all this is that these documents, I'm going to assume that they all have been submitted in good faith, and in good faith that the committee will read them and take account of them.
Chair, sorry, the licensing officer, Lorna McKenna, who was introducing the application this evening, had her hand raised in relation to the new information that was duly passed to committee services and published as supplementary agendas online. Perhaps you can add some more comment, Chair.
Hi, Chair. Yeah, when the chair's referring to the document, so it's in total of all the supplementary agendas. There was a further supplementary agenda which I didn't receive until I'd logged back onto my laptop at 5:30, which was a further supplementary agenda that just wasn't able to be sent around in time due to the late receival of it. So when we're referring to the 200 pages, that is inclusive of all the documents so far that have been submitted via supplementary agenda A and supplementary agenda B, which all parties have been privy to, which is published on the council website.
Well, sir, I think that's right, and I thank the committee team because they've been a stalwart in getting these documents in front of you. I would suggest that that's an excellent idea. We would like the committee members to be able to read all the paperwork.
Yes, and sir, there's no argument with that. Forgive me, it was the reference I thought was too additional, and I was just a bit concerned about additional meant in addition to everything that we've got in front of us in the agenda. But if it's not that, then I can't argue with your proposition. It's important for the committee to have read it, and we're very respectful of that.
And I would like to just open this point up about maybe putting a block on any further submissions up to 48 hours before the next meeting, so that this scenario can't repeat itself. Does anybody here have an issue with that or would like to make a point about that? Please raise your hand.
I don't, sir. Thank you.
No, sir. I'm fully understood and happy to be recorded as saying as such.
Okay, then unless there's anybody else who wants to add a point in relation to us now adjourning, please raise your hand. And I don't see any hands, therefore I will adjourn this meeting, and I will get the officers to contact all the parties to get a mutually agreed date for. Yes, Mr. Phipps.
So forgive me for interrupting, no discourtesy intended. Could I ask, and forgive me, I appreciate that you won't want this live stream, but would it be possible perhaps if it was suitable for Mr. Hughes?
It is being live streamed at the moment, sir.
I appreciate that, but the point I'm coming to is, would you mind, or could we allow for perhaps Mr. Overton and perhaps for governance to stay on with Mr. Hughes? We know we've got nothing else to do because we were going to do the hearing. So just to perhaps talk through the practicalities of when the matter might come to be listed, and we might just have a conversation about that now briefly.
That does seem like a good idea. I'll leave it down to the officer's discretion if he wants to, if he wants to do that. Also, I would ask you just to be mindful that I'm not quite sure all the different parties who's represented by who. so that the I don't want a resident or any other party to suddenly find that they've been locked out of this agreement on dates. Is there anybody here who feels that their interests wouldn't be served by the agreement between the licensing officer, Mr. Hughes, and Mr. Phipps? So in that case, it's all yours, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and I'll formally adjourn this meeting. And once again, thank you very much. And I'm sorry we've not had the hearing that you wanted tonight, and